I'm done with life, and it's all Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. I'm done.
Kawana, Papa Manufiriti Akweu, Akamate, Kamate,
I'm done with life, and it's all Jermaine's fault. It's always Jermaine's fault. I'm done.
What's good, everybody? AB Media 83 here, and welcome to the Colosseum Special. Today, we're going to be talking about how the Manosphere has is here, is not going mainstream. It is mainstream. How do we know it's mainstream? Well, a couple weeks ago, we had an election. And that election had a certain result. And if you listen to the butt hurt blue, no matter who people, this is how the election was supposed to turn out. Emphasis on was supposed to turn out. This is how the election was supposed to turn out, according to Butthurt Blue. According to Butthurt Blue, most of the manosphere was low information, and we didn't know what we were talking about. We didn't understand politics, and Kamala Harris was going to win by what was it, 325 electoral votes, and Donald Trump would only get about 213 electoral votes. And that is what Butthurt Blue thought was going to happen. They literally thought that was going to happen a couple weeks ago. Well, it turns out that Butthurt Blue is the one who are the low information people, because this map is not what happened. This map is what happened. And as you can see, now remember, we live. This is the electoral college. You need 270 to win, and Donald Trump got 312, while Kamala Harris only got 226. Stark contrast from Butthurt Blue map to reality. Now, one of the reasons why this map is so red is because men overwhelmingly, overall, voted for Donald Trump. Nearly 60% of white men voted for Donald Trump. A majority of Latino men voted for Donald Trump. Even 20% of black men, 20 plus percent of black men voted for Donald Trump. And actually, it's even the total for black men is even higher than that if you go by state by state. But as you can see by this map, Donald Trump won the election. But if you listen to But Her Blue, men's opinion don't matter, and Kamala Harris was going to win in a landslide. It would be historical and blah blah blah. Well, actually, it was historical because Donald Trump is now the second president to lose the election to lose an election and then repeat the next time. The first president to do that was Grover Cleveland. He was your 22nd president and your 24th president. He lost to Benjamin Harrison and then beat him again. Well, in Donald Trump's case, he lost to Joe Biden, and then he beat Joe Biden's vice president, Kamala Harris, because, well, Joe Biden had dementia. By the way, it's been pointed out if Joe Biden had actually stayed in the race, that vote total would his electoral total would not be 312. It would be somewhere in the 400s. Something to think about. But the question is, why did Donald Trump win? What was one of the big reasons why Donald Trump win? Well, it might have something to do with a little thing called the Black Manosphere. And the Manosphere in total, but a lot of the ideas that are out there for the reason Trump won it came from our sector of YouTube, the Black Manosphere. I said what I said. But if you listen to some people like Mike V, oh, we have no impact. We're low information voters. We don't know what the fuck we're talking about. Well, this electoral map says otherwise. And trust and believe, Kamala Harris threw everything at the kitchen table. Kamala Harris threw everything at the kitchen table. Let me get my notes here. Let's see. She ran on abortion. That didn't win the election. She brought Barack Obama out to shame us, to shame black men in particular. That didn't win the election. She brought Michelle Obama out to shame men in general, along with black men. That didn't win her the election. She got Taylor Swift to come endorse her. She got Mark Hamill to come endorse her. She had Beyonce to come endorse her. Beyonce. She even got Queen Latifah to come out and endorse her. She got Cardi B to come out and endorse her. And to nobody's surprise, she got the entire View to come out and endorse her. And yet, this is your electoral map. She lost. Despite the fact Sonny Halston's in her feelings about it. Despite the fact that Simone the linebacker Sanders is in her feelings about it. Despite the fact that Joanne Baldhead Reed's in her feelings about it. Kamala Harris lost this election. There's no other way to put it. Kamala Harris lost this election. Whether Butthurt Blue likes it or not. So, I know what you're thinking. How is it that the Manosphere is responsible Why did men vote for Donald Trump? Well, let us take a look. 1 second here. Let me set this up for you guys. All right, go to channel. Let's go to playlist. What are some of the reasons why men chose Donald Trump over Kamala Harris? Well, let us start with when you're Kamala Harris and you put ads out like this, what I'm about to show you, it's a good reason for men to turn men off.
Man. I'm a man.
I'm a man, man.
And I'm man enough.
No one cares.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then
No one cares.
braid the out of my daughter's hair.
Okay, you can braid the shit out of your daughter's hair. No one cares.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
That doesn't sound healthy.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
Bear hugs? Wait a minute. Bear hugs? Did somebody say bear? Did they say bear? Did somebody say bear? You do know that you can always call 1-800-CALL-A-BEAR. I mean, you hug bears, okay? That's what women want to do. They want to call a bear. You can call a bear too. I mean, seriously. Yeah, trying too hard is an understatement. But anyway, let me continue.
I'll tell you another thing I sure as shit am not afraid of. Women.
Okay. No one cares.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
So what? Neither is Donald Trump. By the way, shout out to Donald Trump because Donald Trump nominated Tulsi Gabbard. Yes, that Tulsi Gabbard to be head of intelligence. So no one gives a shit that you're not, quote unquote, not afraid of women. That is irrelevant. And as I said, Donald Trump nominated Tulsi Gabbard to be head of intelligence. So we really don't give a shit that you're not afraid of women. Yeah, that too. But let's continue.
Want to control their bodies? I say go for it.
I would like to state for the record, the only male talking about your body, my choice is an incel white supremacist named Nick Fuentes. He's the only one that wants control of your body like that. The rest of us don't give a shit.
I want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president?
Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to
No one cares.
ask for directions.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like.
I'm man enough to raw dog a flight.
Raw dog of flight. Okay.
It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse.
Okay. you're man enough to be emotional in front of your horse. Yeah, let's go to the next video. Now, this next video is the real reason why men overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, and it's actually really simple. Something James Carville used to say. What is that James Carville used to say all the time? Oh, right, it's the economy, stupid.
In 2008, 58% of young people leaned Democratic. 2012, 53%. And in the last two major election years, that percentage held steady at 55%. But in 2023, that number dipped below 50% for the first time since 2005.
Paying attention, Democrats?
And you'll notice right here, they've started to lean more Republican.
Really? Gee, I wonder why.
And that's partly because of one specific group, young men. Young men have increased their support of the Republican Party from 35% to 48%.
I am so shocked. No, not really. That's what happens when you focus almost the majority of your campaign on abortion, something men don't give a shit about, for the most part.
A 13 percentage point increase in just 7 years. And this is a new trend. While 2020 exit polls show that young men backed Biden by 15 percentage points, a February 2024 Wall Street Journal poll found they favored Trump by 14 percentage points. And
swung the other direction. Gee, I wonder why. Might have something to do that the young men are getting tired of being shamed for, doing manly stuff. What are the feminists called? We're toxic masculinity. Anybody?
And this loss of young male voters is a major issue for the Democratic Party going into November. The question now?
Oh yeah, no shit.
Can Kamala Harris bring some back?
Probably
Here's
not.
what's driving young men to support Republicans and what it could mean for the presidential election to come.
America great again.
When we ask young voters, what issue is most important to you when you go to cast a vote? Among young men, it's the economy. Among young women,
what did I tell you? It's the economy, stupid.
it's abortion.
17% of men say the economy is the most important issue, followed by democracy and immigration. Whereas for young...
Oh, but I was told on multiple occasions that, immigration is not that important. You're just hating immigrants. Blah, 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 blah. By the way, I got 12 watching. Like, share, subscribe. Hit my Cash App. Support the show. Hit my Super Chat. Support the show. Support your interests, fellas. But I was told that, immigration is not important and we were just complaining about it, right?
young women, the top issue is abortion.
By the way, and when I say this, I do say this with love. Do not go to Chicago in a black neighborhood and say that shit out loud. Real talk.
By a lot.
Why is this happening? Well, we put the reasons into two different buckets. One is the life experiences that young men and young women are having. Those life experiences are diverging.
Young men without a college degree have seen the greatest decline in labor force participation. Meanwhile, a record 87% of college-educated women are in the workforce. And today, women make up 60% of college graduates.
This division that we're seeing between young men and young women, it goes beyond who they're going to vote for Congress or president. It goes to a range of policy issues. So then let's look at what the government is offering. The Biden administration has moved to forgive federally funded student loans. That affects young women more than young men.
During the 2019-2020 school year, 49% of female undergraduate students took out loans, compared to only 42% of male undergraduates. And 66% of all student debt is carried by women.
The young women favored forgiving student loans by 45 percentage points. The young men were about equally divided. I mean, that's a big difference.
Meanwhile, young men support extending Trump's tax cuts by 23 percentage points, which cut the corporate tax rate and reduced some individual income tax.
And now, because of our tax cuts, you can keep more of your hard-earned money.
But women oppose the proposed extension by 20 percentage points, a full 43-point difference.
That's data that goes like this. Young men headed in one direction and young women in the other.
Man, too.
That's a big difference. Data does not usually segment young voters that remarkably. This is something new.
Which brings us back to this chart. 22% of young female voters say abortion is their #1 issue in this election, a key aspect of Harris's campaign.
And actually, once the guy came down to election time, abortion wasn't on the top of the list for anybody, women included. But you got knuckleheads running around here. Well, how did Kamala Harris lose? Well,
We trust women to make decisions about their own body.
so is that why you allow men into the women's bathroom? Is this why you put tampons in the men's bathroom? Okay.
Only 3% of young male voters said the same. And young men and women stacked up differently on other issues as well. With immigration, Trump's policies are much more likely to be supported by men than women. Men support deploying troops at the border by 10 percentage points, whereas women oppose this policy by 15 points.
And men won out. So.
And when it comes to building the wall, one of Trump's key immigration policies, men are only slightly leaning towards opposition, but women overwhelmingly oppose it. These gaps are hard to explain just by differences in lived experience, which brings us to the second thing that explains the gap between young men and women.
What are the candidates and what are the parties saying to young voters? Donald Trump and the Republican Party are putting out a lot of messages expressly intended to appeal to young men. Donald Trump has gone to Ultimate Fighting Championship matches.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way to appeal to young men. But I was called a low information voter for pointing out Donald Trump went to go do an interview with The Undertaker. And yeah, I'm just gonna call names. I was called low information by Mike Veef by pointing out that Donald Trump went to go do an interview with The Undertaker, but Mike Veef forgot the fact that a lot of voters are wrestling fans. And turns out the Undertaker interview may have actually been more important than the 60-minute interview, which Donald Trump didn't do in this election cycle. Kamala Harris did a 60-minute interview, and that was a total clusterfuck. So, but remember, this is what Butthurt Blue said was going to happen 2 weeks ago. And this is what actually happened 2 weeks ago. Looks like a red wave to me. Looks like a mandate to me. What say you guys? Anyway, let's continue.
He recently appeared on the podcast of Logan Paul. He went to a sneaker convention to sell his own brand of sneakers.
Went to Logan Paul's podcast. Went to Joe Rogan's podcast. And by the way, I checked. Joe Rogan's podcast is now up to 50 million. His vice president also went to Joe Rogan's podcast, as well as Elon Musk. And if I'm not mistaken, Joe Rogan, a couple days before the election, endorsed Donald Trump. So, who had the right strategy? Who won this map again? But we got people going around here talking about we're low information voters and Kamala Harris is going to win in a landslide. That's not what happened. Anyway.
We got to get young people out to vote.
These are audiences that are overwhelmingly male and overwhelmingly filled with young men. And it's a way that Donald Trump and his campaign have been saying, hey, young men, I'm with you. I'm on the same page as you. I understand you.
Meanwhile,
a lot of the messaging from the Democratic Party has been towards issues that are more salient for women.
When I am president of the United States, I will sign into law the protections for reproductive freedom.
So what does
Now, one of the things that probably drove people up the wall is Kamala Harris kept on saying that she wants to keep government out of women's health care, but in the same sentence saying that she's going to sign a law to have more government have hands on women's health care. Which is it? All right. Well, I guess we'll never know because they didn't elect her to be president. Oh well. Let's continue.
What does this mean for November? Young women historically vote at higher rates than young men. But experts say that with a tight election, the Democratic Party will need to draw in as many votes as possible.
Now, that's about over. So the next video, we're going to be taking just a reminder
that both parties are.
This is Nina Turner, and during this interview, she was asked why it seems like more black men are supporting Donald Trump than ever before, and this is Nina Turner's answer.
Captured by corporate interests. And that pains me greatly. And I wish that the American people had another choice. They don't have it yet, but I think they might have it one day. So no, I can't look at the Republicans, especially the federal ones, because they
What's your read on why so many black men, Hispanic voters have found in Trump something to admire, something even to vote for?
Madam Editor, I'm glad you asked me that question. For me, the Democratic Party emasculates black men.
Yes, they do.
And I think Hispanic men probably feel the same way. And I say this because they weaponize identity. When and where we enter, who we are, how we are.
Yeah, weaponize identity. Do I need to go any further than Whoopi Goldberg? And don't be surprised if they use Scott Jackson in the future too. Whoopi Goldberg, Sonny Huston, anybody? That's what Nina Turner is talking about. Like, share, subscribe, hit the Cash App, support the show, hit the Super Chat, support the show.
We identify is important to who we are, just like our fingerprints. But if you're not going to use my identity to advance a social justice cause, and you're just going to use my identity as a blunt force object, now I got a problem. So what the Democratic Party does, they put black women on a pedestal and they say, we're the mothers of the movement, or we save the party. But yet you don't put forth policies that save black babies.
I'm independent. I'm the backbone.
You don't put forth policies that deal with the maternal death rate of black women and black babies in the United States of America. You don't do those things that lift and edify. Yes, identity is important. Both parties use it differently. Republicans use it to say that everybody black or brown or of a mixed race is somehow kind of way a DEI hire. They use it to say certain books will be banned. Don't tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth about how this country was formulated, because you might hurt a white child's feelings by saying that, yeah, chattel slavery existed. And, oh, by the way, white powerful folks stole the land from the indigenous people. So all of those things, Chinese Exclusion Act, I mean, we can go down the list. But Democrats use it in a way that alienates other folks, and it offends me. So when I talk to black men across this country, they don't see themselves in this party. It's one thing to recognize the power and prowess of black women.
I sure don't see myself in the Democrat Party whatsoever. Put a 1 in the chat. Do any of y'all see yourself in the Democrat Party? Put a 1 in the chat if you see yourself in the Democrat Party whatsoever.
And the sacrifices that we make. It is another thing to put us above black men. The black struggle, black men and black women have to be together. We don't have the luxury to be separated. And so
I disagree there, but that's not the point of this video.
Resent the Democratic Party for doing that. And so black men do not see themselves in the party. That bravado.
No, we don't.
You know, because we got a kind of masculine energy. And masculine energy is not all bad. But the type of bravado that Trump puts forward is still very much rooted in a hierarchical patriarchy. And a lot of men gravitate to that.
Yeah. So is it, I mean, you feel in a way, it's tokenization in a way if they don't pay any attention to it, right? If it
Mike, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yes.
We're falling apart at the end of the night. But that's essentially, right?
Exactly
is it a thing that I've seen?
Okay, the next clip is from CNN, and it's another clip on why young men are headed toward Trump. All right, let's see here.
Did an election that was supposed to revolve around women's issues actually come down to the plight of men, young men?
Yeah.
The 2024 race long ago turned into the boys versus girls election, with polls showing Harris performing significantly better among women and Trump among men. But the question was, how big will the gender gap actually be? Well, we all know now it was big enough to hand Donald Trump the presidency. More than half of the male vote nationwide, 55% went to Trump, 42% to Harris. Men under 30 saw a dramatic shift from supporting Democrats in 2020 by a 15 percentage point margin to swinging back to the GOP by 13 points. A CNN exit poll also found men under 30 in Pennsylvania favored Trump by 21 points. In 2020, Biden won that same group by 9 points. A part of President-elect Donald Trump's campaign strategy involved using hyper-masculine voices like Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock, UFC CEO Dana White. Democrats may have miscalculated the strength and importance in appealing to men. On their party's website, under the headline, Who We Serve, Democrats showed a diverse list of minority groups, including LGBTQ+, Americans with disabilities, Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, women, many other communities. No mention of men. You might remember back in August, I noted this, made reference to the omission in a conversation that I had with Professor Scott Galloway.
The Democratic Party right now, Michael, is facing the same issues as some of the DEI apparatus at universities. And that is when you are purposely and explicitly advocating for 76% of the population, are you advocating for them or are you discriminating against the 24%? And that's how I think a lot of young men feel. Quite frankly, they just don't feel seen by the Democratic Party.
In the final months of the election, Donald Trump reached out.
But you know, the Manosphere has no effect whatsoever
To young male voters on popular platforms that they subscribe to. His campaign even consulted Trump's youngest son, Barron, on where to find this audience. Trump did lengthy interviews with Joe Rogan, Theo Von, Logan Paul, bussin' with the boys on Barstool, Aiden Ross. He played golf with YouTube pranksters known as the Nelk Boys. His 3-hour interview with Joe Rogan last month reached 55 million listeners and resulted in Rogan's late endorsement for Trump on election eve. After clinching the presidency early Wednesday morning, Trump and his family and his campaign surrogates took to the stage to thank their supporters. UFC CEO Dana White gave a personal shout out to the Manosphere.
I want to thank some people real quick. I want to thank the Nelk Boys, Aiden Ross, Theo Von, busting with the boys, and last but not least, the mighty and powerful Joe Rogan.
Oh, but the Manosphere has no effect, right?
Joining me now is NYU Business School professor Scott Galloway. He's the host of the podcast, Professor G. Great to have you back. We've all heard of toxic masculinity. What is aspirational masculinity?
Good to be with you, Michael. Aspirational, feeling good about being a man, believing you are entitled to more economic opportunity than is currently presented. Look, you referenced this, so I feel like most of the stats I was going to discuss, you've already kind of stolen my thunder, but essentially this was supposed to be the election, the referendum on bodily autonomy. This was the testosterone election. Look at who Trump went on, look at who and what he went all in on. Crypto, Elon Musk, rockets, cars. You talk about podcasts. There's a difference between being right and being effective. Whether we can discuss whether his policies are right or not, but gosh, talk about effective. That number you mentioned, a total of 55 million people listen to or watch the Rogan podcast. The average age is 34, skews male. Just to talk about broadcast television, some of the best shows on MSNBC, seen as a left kind of leaning network, get 1 million viewers and the average age is 70 and it skews female. So what would be more effective? 1 million 70-year-old women.
Oh, speaking of MSNBC, Joe Scarborough and his bigoted wife, Mika Brzezinski, went to Mar-a-Lago to pretty much bend the knee to Donald Trump. I guess Joe Scarborough saw the writing on the wall. It might have something to do with the fact that Comcast is now trying to sell MSNBC. MSNBC's viewership has dropped 50+% since the election. I told people this on Facebook. A lot of them didn't believe me. Playtime is over. The Manosphere is here. Get right or get left. Let's continue.
Women, or 55 million 34-year-old men in your state, the swingiest of swing states. Young men were 9 points towards Biden in 2020 and then 18 points toward Trump in 24, that's a tectonic shift. And it all comes down, in my opinion, to the same thing. A 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30 for the first time in America's history. And if your son isn't in a relationship, can't afford to buy a home, is anxious, is depressed, are the rights of Palestinians, territorial sovereignty of Ukraine, or trans rights, does that even register on your screen?
No.
This was the testosterone podcast election.
I want to say that you've spoken of these issues. We've spoken of these issues before there was a 2024 campaign. And I can remember having conversations with Scott Galloway going back 2 or 3 years, some of them here on CNN, some of them on Sirius XM, wondering why, and I wasn't thinking Donald Trump, but why doesn't someone champion this cause? And really, he was the first to step forward and do so.
He flew right into the storm, and he embraced the Manosphere. He talked about.
Oh, according to Butthurt Blue, the Manosphere has no effect whatsoever. We have no effect whatsoever, according to some people. The Black Manosphere has no effect whatsoever, fellas. That's not what Scott Galloway's saying right now, is it?
About the need, crypto, right? What is more ground zero for kind of young men and economic opportunity, whether you believe that or not, than crypto? And let's look at some of the stats. 40 years ago, the average age of the first-time homebuyer was 36. Today, it's 54. Pre-pandemic, the average home was $290,000. Post-pandemic, it's $420. With an acceleration in interest rates, you're looking at the average mortgage has gone from $1,100 to $2,200. 40 years ago, 2/3 of people under the age of 30 had a home. 60% had a child. Have all of a sudden young people opted out of having a home and a child, or maybe they just can't afford it? And
considering the average house price is around $450, how could I say this? More than half my generation can't even afford to buy a house. But yet we still got people wondering why Kamala Harris lost. Her and Joe Biden were in charge.
Unfortunately, the Democrats weren't able to square the circle of the fact that the economy is actually quite good, and some of Trump's policies, whether it be deficit spending or tariffs, will likely result in more inflation and greater interest rates and taxation on the young, but they weren't able to communicate that. They, in the podcast medium, can't be understated here, Michael, because some of the offensive things that we Democrats thought, that joke is offensive, the zeitgeist in podcasts is it softens people. Podcast hosts aren't looking for a gotcha moment. They generally want to present the individual in their best light. And it's more got the vibe of, can't you take a joke? And if you look at the 9 of the top 10 podcasts, 8 of they lean right, and Trump went on 6 of them. There's going to be a lot of forensics here, but not acknowledging the struggles of young men as a broader theme will be a very big issue when we look at the autopsy of the failed Harris campaign. And also, simply put, she should have gone on a plane to Austin. The demographic group that swung most violently towards Trump was young people. The second most violent swing was their parents, age 45 to 64. All of the social engineering, all of the righteous social issues didn't even take a back seat. They weren't even in the car, because what people see is their kids not doing well, specifically young men, and Trump went right into this issue.
I want to display what you're describing. Put up the Edison Research Exit Survey data. This was published by the Washington Post. I don't know if Scott can see it, but it shows that among 18 to 29-year-olds, she had the edge. But as we've documented, he gained significantly among young men. But now look at the 45 to 64 category. It was the best category for Donald Trump. You just made reference to this, but who are those people as they relate to young men?
I hear from them every day, Michael. When I started talking about the struggles of young men 3 or 4 years ago, there was a gag reflex. I understood it because a lot of people who entered that void were, quite frankly, thinly veiled misogynists. The conversation has shifted, and the people driving this conversation and the most emails, or the demographic I get the most emails from, are the following: single mothers worried about their sons. Are you focused on international affairs or the rights of special interest group when your son, my daughter's in Pennsylvania at Penn, my other daughter's in PR in Chicago, and my son is in the basement vaping and playing video games, and you want me to worry about Ukraine? You want me to have empathy for this zombie apocalypse on campuses, which is seen as very democratic? No, I want my kid out of my house, and I want him to have the same opportunities my generation had. The second biggest swing here, or the the portion of the female vote that swung most aggressively away from Harris and towards Trump was one demographic: mothers.
You're entitled to this victory lap because you've been saying it here. I've been thrilled to give you the platform to say it for years. Thank you, Professor G.
Oh, but the Black Manosphere has no effect, right? No effect whatsoever, right? Now, shout out to BGS. He played this next clip earlier, and we're going to go through it as well.
Well, I heard from some of the, the very fancy political streets that bro culture was actually like taken. The term bro culture is to.
It's called the Manosphere. You linebacker with lipstick.
Young men that Latinx is to the Hispanic and Latino community. I just want to throw it on the.
Most Latinos don't give a fuck about the term Latinx. Y'all made that shit up.
Table. Is that true? Like, is the bro culture, is it a backlash? Let's talk about bro culture.
I mean, look, I certainly don't feel like I'm a part of a bro culture, but there is a manosphere, right? There's a manosphere where these conversations
are
happening, where there are conversations that are not happening in mainstream media, conversations about masculinity, about how masculinity is evolving. I get these texts.
Yes.
From my dad and WhatsApp groups all the time about how what we are eating is reducing masculinity. I'm like, Dad, I promise it's not because I ate avocados, but that, you're right. So there is an environment where conversations are happening that Democrats are going to have to penetrate. But when we get there, we're going to have a different conversation. And some of these conversations are complicated, right? This is where we talk about reclaiming values like masculinity and spirituality. What does masculinity look like in a Democratic Party? Right. What is the role of masculinity if it's not all toxic?
But it's not. See, that's the problem. So I think you just jumped onto a false narrative. It's not about what masculinity is in a
Okay, Michael, keep telling yourself that lie.
Political party. It's what's masculinity in our culture.
In society. That's right.
What does it mean for a young man to grow into a father, to grow into a productive?
That's your version.
Member of our community. So this whole bro culture BS is.
Oh, now we just bullshitting, huh? What we talk about is bullshit. Black men's white is just bullshit to you, Michael. And you wonder why your side lost.
Psychological warp game with young men telling them that they got to, have a particular attitude about women. They got to look at situations, through this.
Yeah, they do, because a lot of these feminism has trained these women to be 304s and gold diggers. So yeah, we have to look at women a certain way for our own protection.
This lens where, Josh Hawley and others, hey, we're going to shine some light on our groin and we're going to become more men. What the hell are we talking about here?
What I found interesting in our research is we asked young men, what does it mean to be a man? Number one thing was protecting your family. Number two thing was honesty. So this is a complicated group. There's 25 million young men. I wouldn't put them all in a box, but there are young men.
So they just voted for someone who is, in terms of protecting the family, is going to break up families. And in terms of being honest, we're talking about Donald Trump here.
That's my point.
And?
That's my point. There are young men who voted for Kamala Harris who have concerns about feminism. And there are young men who voted for Donald Trump who support abortion rights. This is this true swing group. 7 million of them voted for Joe Biden in 2020. They can go back, but we have to speak to them and realize that they're not fitting into these boxes that we're used to.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Right.
So after the election, you had a briefing, Young Men's Research Initiative, and your researcher said two things that I've been thinking about a lot. One is that people say, who listens to 3 hours of Joe Rogan? People who stock groceries, people who drive trucks. It becomes a parasocial relationship.
Yeah, it's easy. Quite frankly, Joe Rogan's more entertaining than what y'all call television now. I don't know about y'all, but I haven't paid for cable in over 5 years. So, yeah.
But also this idea that Democrats are so focused on the policy and the messaging, and that is one piece of things, and that is for the party to contend with. But what your researcher said is so long as whatever that policy and whatever that message is being filtered through the kaleidoscope of the media that folks are consuming, not just young men, right? Just this powerful media force, they will find a way to say, well, that message from Democrats isn't for you. That policy from Democrats isn't for you. So there's also, from an infrastructure perspective in the progressive space, someone has to deal with the kaleidoscope, either by penetrating the kaleidoscope or by saying, here's some alternate forms of media where, it's fun and it's entertaining and we talk about culture and we don't jam the vegetables into your mouth. We understand you're a full person with a full life, and we can talk to you that way.
There goes the avocado.
Let's talk about the investment problem.
It's a fruit.
If you go to the Democratic Party's website right now, they have a page on who we serve, and it lists 16 different groups. It says women, seniors, rural Americans. One group that's not mentioned is men. And
yeah, pretty much.
I don't think that Democrats
and people wonder why I say the Democrats have a man problem. Not just a black man problem, they have a man problem.
leaders are saying we are not for men, but the message is getting across. If you look at dollars spent, Donald Trump in his campaign outspent Dems 4-1 in terms of online ads targeting young men, 10-1 in swing states. So there's clearly an investment problem. And then we need to start thinking about these distribution channels. How do we actually get through the kaleidoscope and get those messages that we want to young men?
A part of my concern, though, is not just that what you describe as like the Democratic message is not for these men. It's that far too often it feels like Democrats are saying those men are not for us, right? If they don't, the partisan, the progressive Puritanism, right? I tell people all the time, in my household, my father is the head of household, and my mother agreed with that, right?
Yeah. Which brings me to my next point. I have this sign for a reason, and I post it often when I can. Warning: if you vote blue, no matter who, your butt is about to hurt. Nobody is going to kiss the Democrat Party's ass for you. If you don't like it, you can always go kick rocks. I made that for a reason. And it's what this brother's talking about. Democrats think somebody has to come kiss their ass. I ain't gonna do it. Before I continue, this show has been brought to you by Sweet Sassy Roland Vote Blue Sauce. Now with extra sassy blue juice. Like, share, subscribe, hit the Cash App, support the show, hit the Super Chat, support the show, support your interests, black man. But let's continue.
Right, that in a culture that has raised men to believe that men are head of household, when they have questions about a woman as president, it doesn't mean that they're no longer our voter. It means we have to engage them in a tough conversation about why gender roles are evolving, why our country is evolving. It's the same thing Barack Obama did in 2008. He didn't tell every white person that had bias, you're not my voter. He engaged them in a conversation about how his grandmother, the person he loved the most, held bias too. And that's what Democrats are not doing. We are rejecting these men who have opinions that are different than us, who don't hold our progressive Puritanism, and we're telling them that they're no longer our voter. We don't want you here if you don't lead with your pronouns. We don't want you here if you don't believe that a woman should be president, as opposed to our country is evolving, there's a role for you in it, and this is what it's going to look like.
One other thing that Obama did.
Oh, go ahead. No, yeah, please.
Was he showed up everywhere. I remember seeing Obama at World Wrestling events, and he would talk to anyone, and he had that approach. The other thing is, I think we need to do a better job of listening to what is going on online and what young men are saying. This is a rapidly changing landscape. The world in 2026.
Yes. Why y'all think MSNBC is for sale? Because nobody's watching. They lost 50+% of their viewers after the election because everybody figured out they was lying to them.
So 2020.
As I said, as the title says, the Manosphere, the writings on the wall, the Manosphere is here. Get right or get left.
Could look very different. And the first-time voters, they're in high school right now. So we need to be prepared. It's not just the battle we're fighting right now. It's keeping our eye on what's going on so we understand what's coming.
I think this head of household a piece that you hit on and you and Aaron are dovetailing, I really think that there is something there. Y'all remember the weekend before the election, Governor Moore of Maryland came on our show and he talked about, men need to stand up for their households. He said, and that is how he framed it. He framed it as, as a man, if you're the head of your household, like these are the things, that I'm talking to men about in this election. And what I've heard is that some
not all men have households. That's the price you pay for feminism, Simone.
voters have felt that maybe the language that was used to speak about men and in this election was a little condescending. It's like, let's talk to the men. And
yeah, we don't like being talked to crazy like you talked to Uncle Luke on Twitter. You don't talk to men like that, Simone. Let's continue.
And maybe we all need to be thinking. But I really think that when I talk to folks and they're like, oh, well, people just didn't want to vote for a woman. What you're saying is right, Terrence. In a culture where men have been young men and boys are raised to be the head of their household, and they're saying
nobody gives a shit about Kamala Harris being a woman. We give a shit about the fact she wasn't qualified for that office.
well, I don't know if a woman can be president. We can't write that off. We need to engage it. It is painful though, because it's just like your mama raised you, but you don't think your mama been telling you what to do your whole life, but now you don't want a woman running the country. It's painful, but you got to have those conversations is what I'm hearing.
That's right. And these are going to be painful conversations, but there's a way to hold our progressive values, right? Hold our progressive values and message them through these types of lenses. Look, as the head of my household, it is incumbent upon me to protect my family from a government that tells my wife or daughter who they can and cannot be. If God grants everyone freedom of choice, then why should government grant my daughter any less than that? That is a different lens. That's a religious lens, a masculine lens for the exact same progressive values. We can do both.
So I don't have children. I don't have a son or daughter, but one of the things that drives me nuts about the Democrats' so-called campaigning was we need to protect women, while that side wants men to be allowed to be in the women's bathroom, while that side wants men to play in women's sports, while the Democrats wanted to change Title IX to enforce all this mess, including the rainbow flag. But they're the ones that want to protect women. Okay. Let's go to the next one. Now,
mandate.
There is a kind of male that the Democrats like to put in front of us. And, well, see for yourself.
Well, you can always count on white Democrats.
Me. This is the kind of male they wish men around the country operated like. Sassy males like this.
To start complaining and, oh my God, this is what happened and why we lost, and it's defund the police, it's wokeism, it's identity politics, it's all of that stuff.
Yeah, it is all that stuff, knucklehead.
Even though none of that stuff Vice President Kamala Harris actually talked about.
Oh, identity. She didn't talk about identity politics. Okay. Is that why she wouldn't stop talking about abortion? But she didn't, she didn't talk politics. Really, Roland? This is what we're doing, Roland? Or as Rolanda, as the Pandora African calls you?
It's just whining and complaining. Here's James Carville just really upset, talking about, man, we told y'all this identity crap, it's awful. Listen to this. We have no legislative power.
James Carville isn't wrong. Even though he was bigging up Kamala Harris and saying that she was going to win too, but he's not wrong in his criticism right here.
We have no executive power. We have no judicial power. So when you're out of power, you're an opposition party. And go and tell all of the people that are sending you and asking you for money, justify.
I guess he must be with his cat lady.
What you did, justify what you did wrong, and tell us what you're going to do different. Because what you've done ain't worth a shit. Get your head around that. And all of the Washington-based Democrats farting around, going to wine and cheese parties and talking about how misogynistic race, get your ass out of Washington and go work on a 2026 campaign and do penance to make up for your goddamn arrogance and stupidity. Well, we're going to say, we told you so. We told you this identity shit was disaster. We told you to get out in front of public safety issues. You didn't. We told you to have an open process.
Public safety issues as in immigration?
And demonstrate the magnificent, staggering, and deep talent that exists in the modern Democratic Party. You didn't. We told you to differentiate yourself from Biden. You didn't. I hate to be some fucking know-it-all, but all of these things are part of the record.
Yeah. All right. So not only that, I saw this tweet earlier, and I had to comment on it. And my next guest also commented on it. Let me find it. So Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. Okay, so he posted this. Of the 20 highest median income states, Democrats won 18 of them. Of the 20 lowest median income states, Democrats won 3. Yes, race and gender play a big role in politics, but the hard truth is this: Democrats clearly aren't listening to the people we say we fight for. Cliff.
Yep. No shit. It's not just black people. People didn't understand it. It's not just black people Democrats do not listen to. They don't listen to their other parts of their base either. And they wonder why they keep losing. But I'm not going to torture you with Roland Martin too long because he is insufferable. But now let's go see what Baldhead Reed has to say about the aftermath of the election.
So apparently some folks on the right have been thoroughly triggered by the segment we did here on the Readout last week, in which a Yale-trained psychologist counseled those who are distraught about the results of the presidential election and frankly frightened over the prospects for their own lives because of it, that they do not owe the people who voted for the very things they're terrified of their time over the holidays.
In other words, she's promoting people cutting off their own families over this election. Now, let me make something perfectly clear. I am a black man, and yeah, most of my family probably voted for Kamala Harris. I haven't cut off any of my family. Now, if they cut me off, that's on them. But that's what Joanne Reed is promoting right now.
The push, I think, just a societal norm that if somebody is your family, that they are entitled to your time. And I think the answer is absolutely no.
No, they're not entitled to your time, but stop talking to your family over an election is nothing to.
So if you are going into a situation where you have family members, where you have close friends who you know have voted in ways that are against you, like what you said, against your livelihood, and it's completely fine to not be around those people and to tell them why.
Cue the people who just 2 weeks ago were screaming, "Let's go, Brandon," and cheering as J.D. Vance called Vice President Harris the trash he
as if Joe Biden calls a pile of garbage
was going to take out. Now yelling, "Why can't we all come together?" Really? I seem to recall that when your guy lost the last election, you didn't come together. Your people stormed the Capitol, smashed in windows, and rioted.
That was just a group of drunken idiots. That wasn't the majority of his supporters.
Beat up and nearly killed police officers and menaced poll workers all over the country. MAGA people issued so many death threats to Ruby Freeman and her daughter Shay Moss, they had to leave their home in Georgia. But it didn't stop there. Those who spoke out against Donald Trump's attempts to overturn the election got death threats too, and they were all Republicans. And now that your guy won, suddenly y'all want to come together? Would that be before or after we get over your body, my choice? Look.
Once again, the only person saying your body, my choice is a racist incel male named Nick Fuentes. He's the only one that thinks like that. And quite frankly, he's not popular among the white conservatives, let alone the black ones. He's the only one saying that dumb shit. Stop it.
Clearly, Brandon wants to come together. Here he is, kikiing with the guy he was just recently saying was destroying the soul of America. It's a remarkable scene. When Biden beat Donald Trump in 2020, Trump refused to attend his swearing in. But Biden will surely be right there at Trump's. I guess the whole peaceful transition of power thing only works for Republicans when the power is being peacefully transferred to them. And it's not like Donald Trump has changed. His entire campaign was centered on anything but coming together, but rather around insults, threats, weird swaying, and
you shouldn't talk about Kamala Harris's campaign like that.
Hitler quotes. So please educate me. What would you like us to come together around? You all are the ones claiming that this lady, the sitting vice president of the United States, would have been a DEI hire as president, despite having been a.
By the way, Joanne Reed's show lost about 56% of her viewership after the election. So she's salty for a reason.
A duly elected prosecutor, attorney general of the largest state in the union, a United States senator, and the VP. While you claim this guy is more qualified than she is because he's a man and he played a successful real estate tycoon on a popular TV show? Seriously? Are we meant to come together around his running mate, whose only job prior to 18 months as a senator was working for Peter Thiel, but apparently is not a DEI vice president for some reason that I cannot fathom? A guy who has not once taken back his insults against half the women in this country? We're coming together on sliming women as childless cat ladies now?
And 50+% of white women still voted for him and Donald Trump. Your point, Joy? By the way, if you talk to some white women, quiet as is kept, they want to be grabbed by the pussy. Something to think about.
Yeah, really? The 4-star general is a DEI hire to you, scared to get on a plane with a black pilot types, but this guy is qualified to be secretary.
I got 44 watching. Like, share, subscribe. Hit my Cash App. Support the show. Hit my Super Chat. Support the show.
Defense because he was a National Guard captain and co-host a popular weekend TV show on Fox. I wonder what make
20+ military career. Yeah, he's qualified to be Secretary of Defense.
him not DEI. I'll keep noodling on it. I'm sure it'll come to me. And Trump is hiring a bunch of these underqualified people for really important jobs in his next administration, demanding that we all affirm them as perfectly serious candidates so we can all, come together. It is a common feature of authoritarianism and fascism that the nation is called to come together under the autocrat and accept that his incompetent lackeys are our betters. The idea that any random white guy or right-thinking woman with zero background is inherently superior to any black person or woman, no matter how many
doesn't even make any sense, but okay.
Degrees or qualifications they have is a conceit of fascism and ethno-nationalism that no, we cannot come together around. We cannot come together around mass deporting millions of immigrants and potentially separating families or throwing.
Yeah, but the country's overflowing with immigrants to the point where everybody's complaining. And y'all spent more money on immigrants the last year than you did on homeless veterans. For those of you who don't know, the government spent $66 billion, not million, $billion on illegal immigrants, while only spending $3 billion on homeless veterans. But you want to sit up here and wonder why people went and voted for Trump. Really?
Them into internment camps. We can't come together around kicking women or gay, bi, or trans people out of the military just because macho man weekend TV guys said so.
I don't care what your preference is. You can join the military. But the military, and even female military officers will tell you, you need to choose who's best for the job. The military needs to be choosing who's best for the job. And I agree with Pete Hegseth that women shouldn't be on the front line. And you can go ahead and call me a sexist for it, but if you talk to honest female soldiers, they agree with the same. They agree with the same sentiment. They don't want to be on the front lines either. And if you understand male nature, how can I say this? Let's say we have females in the front line and they get captured. If you understand male nature, do I need to go any further? Didn't think so.
Or around the idea of banning abortion and IVF nationwide and watching more women die from sepsis or more teenagers giving birth to rape babies. We can't.
Oh, by the way, nobody's giving it. People giving rate. The amount of abortions done because of SA is 1% or less. So, in other words, Joy Reid is lying to you. She's full of shit. Which is probably why she lost half her viewers.
Let's come together around Matt Gaetz.
By the way, let's look at. Yeah, that's about right. This video has about 7,700 likes and 8,600 dislikes. Sounds about right to me. That's the average Joanne Reid video.
Was accused of trafficking a teenage girl, something he denies. Being the top law enforcement official in the land and getting to see all the evidence against him, including the identities of his accusers, with the freedom to persecute them and prosecute anyone else that done.
Okay, that's enough now. Y'all get the point. But the point of this video is to point out the Manosphere is here, whether you like it or not. Get right or get left. Now, I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time. If anybody wants to come up, you can do so now. If not, I'm shutting the stream down. But the Manosphere is here, whether you like it or not. The writing's on the wall. It's not just on the wall, it's on your computer screen. It's on TikTok. And in some cases, it's even on TV. Get right or get left. The choice is yours. The choice is yours. But, according to some people, I'm just a low information voter. I don't know what I'm talking about, Kamala Harris was going to win by 325 electoral votes. Oh, wait, right, that didn't happen. This map happened. Let's see. Who we got coming up? Adric. How's it going?
Pretty good. How's my audio?
You're good.
Oh, thanks. Good.
Go ahead.
Hold on. I got to turn off one of I think my YouTube's playing in the background. I got to
No,
go. 1 second.
You're good. You sound fine.
All right, good deal. So I just want to make a comment. I think there was plenty of times where Kamala had the opportunity to address black men
Yes.
issues, and pretty much what she the opportunities that she had, the opportunities that she was afforded for having some sort of policy for black folks. And I commented on the National Association of Black Journalists. To me, that was a good interview.
Yes,
And I remember there were several times where the young man pressed her pertaining to reparations. And she had the opportunity to say that if she was elected as president, she could have that executive order for I'm trying to think of that policy. Is it help me out here? Is it the oh my goodness,
I don't remember.
HR, is it HB? What is that? It's like from 1989.
Something like that.
Yes, thank you. Yes. So she had the opportunity to at least say that she could push that as an executive order. And that would only direct Congress to do a study for reparations. So that was an opportunity, I believe, that she missed.
Missed a lot of opportunities.
Well, that was sorry, would say.
A lot of people don't understand. I watched and covered most of her interviews after they announced she was president, and I just didn't see anything. She couldn't answer a question whatsoever. I didn't see anything in her. I didn't see a person that was qualified to be president at all.
Yeah, that's true.
I told people I tried. It wasn't like I was just yelling that she wasn't qualified to be president. I tried. I listened to most of her interviews. I didn't go over the one with her and Club Shay Shay, but that's probably the only one I didn't cover. And maybe one NBC one, but she just didn't come off as genuine or a person I would want to be president. And that's her fault, whether people like it or not.
I agree.
Now, do I think Trump's perfect? Of course not. Does he have a bunch of negatives? Yes. And to his credit, he said, you either like me or you don't. If you like me, I'll win. If you don't, I won't win. And apparently, enough people liked him enough for him to win. Not only did he win the Electoral College, he won the popular vote along with it.
Who saw that coming?
Man, I was watching. I kid you not. I was looking at the screen. I noticed he was ahead in the popular vote. I was like, okay, let's see how long that lasts. During the night, I was like, wait a minute, it's not going down. Hold on, wait a minute. It's not going down whatsoever. In fact, let me pull this map back up. Let's see, where is it at? It took New Jersey forever to flip to Kamala. Usually, New York and New Jersey are like the first to go once those polls close. In fact, I was talking to Lewis, who's from New Jersey. I'm like, man, what's taking the state so long to declare for Kamala? And Trump was like within like 5 or 6 points of it. He was really close.
I wonder what would have been said if New York and or New Jersey flipped red.
They crashing out now. I don't even want to know what the crash out would be like if one of those states flipped, man. That would be ugh. Ugh. They tripping now, man. I don't even want to know what they'd be doing if one of them states flipped. That would be I would say it would be soul crushing, but you could tell they're so crushed now. And this isn't even a Reagan level defeat. But Democrats don't want to talk about that. I believe it was 83, Walter Mondale versus Ronald Reagan. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the only state, ironically, to go to Walter Mondale, the only state to go to Walter Mondale was Montana. Everybody else voted for Reagan. And unfortunately, I think that's one of the reasons why the Democrats are the way they are, because it traumatized them. And that's how you got the rise of Bill Clinton in that group.
So what do you think the change will be now for the Democrats? I mean, trying to regain.
I don't know if they can change.
Yeah.
I don't have any hope for them. In fact, I'm starting to tell progressives, the real lefties, you guys may actually have a better chance of taking over the Republican Party. And I'm dead serious about that. You have to understand, back in 2016, I was nobody's Trump supporter. I wanted to Bernie Sanders. But I sat and watched the Democrats screw him over. And quiet as it's kept, believe it or not, I did vote. I did hold my nose and voted for Hillary Clinton. And to this day, I can't get that stench out of my nose.
Well, that's behind you now, so.
Yeah, but I regret that vote to this day. And no, it's not because she was a woman. Oh, by the way, I did vote for a woman this election cycle too. She lost, but that's how I'm in Indiana. That's how it rolls.
I hear you.
This
Well,
is
it's going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting times.
Yeah, I'm just hoping World War III doesn't prop out with this crap Biden pulled yesterday. He sent some U.S. missiles over to Ukraine to strike Russia.
Yeah, that is a problem. Well, I'm hoping for the best.
Me too.
Well, I want to thank you for having me up on your panel.
Sure, no problem. Good to hear from you.
Oh, you got it.
But is there anything else before I shut down?
Oh, I'm good. We pretty much covered what was on my mind. So I do appreciate you and hope to have the opportunity to come up another time.
All right. First time I've ever heard from you, but good to have you.
Thank you very much.
But,
have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
I would like to thank peace. I would like to thank everybody that came through. This is AB Media 83, and I'm out. Peace. Yo, this is AB Media 83. Want to support the channel? Hit the Cash App. Also, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the video. Also, be sure to hit that bell notification so you can be notified next time I upload a live stream or video. And always remember, keep it grinding, keep it pushing, keep it moving. This is AB Media 83, and I'm out. Peace.